Monday. Oh yes. It's a mystery Monday. Oh yeah.
Mysteries Monday. Mysteries on a Monday. Mystery. Mondays. Mystery.
It's a mystery Monday. What mystery do we have for you today? It's a mystery Monday. Oh, what secrets of the box are we gonna unleash for you?
What secrets are in the box?
In Pandora's box.
Mystery.
It's a mystery Monday. We're bringing it for you right now, baby. Yeah. It's a mystery Monday. What sort of dark, sinister effects have we got for you now, baby?
Rockstar edition, Mystery Mondays.
Everyone will have to let us know what their favourite intro of Mystery Mondays is. We just invent them on the spot every week. So the quality may vary. Sometimes you capture lightning in a bottle, sometimes it's just you know,
not there.
Sometimes the bottle smashes in your hand.
Yeah, that's it. And then your life just passes before your eyes and falls down into a dark abyss.
That's right.
Just like a lot of these mysteries that we bring for y'all every
damn week.
every single Monday.
Every Monday.
So yeah, welcome to Mystery Mondays. This is the time of the week where we bring a different Monday for you, a different Monday, a different mystery for you every single Monday.
Can you believe we're 5 weeks in already?
I know.
5 weeks of Mondays and mysteries.
Time flies, man.
I know.
Time flies.
What did we speak about last week? Drew, what was the name of your mystery last week?
It was like Antoine and Defet.
The Jordan
and
Jordan.
Jordan. And I can't even remember the names of them. It was the two headmasters who went back to the
those ladies
to the thing of Versailles.
It's a good episode.
The Palace of Versailles.
Check it out.
Yeah, check that out, man.
Yeah, this week the mystery that I will be bringing to you all is a tale that you guys have probably heard of before, but it's an extra mysterious case. This is the mystery of the Zodiac murders.
Oh, cool.
Isn't there is there a film out or
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, really good film as well.
I've not seen the film.
No. I just know it's really good.
How do you know?
Just let you know reviews on that.
Exactly.
Yeah, so like the Zodiac murderer, the Zodiac killer, and the Zodiac murders are like some of the most mysterious and compelling, and also like downright freaky murders that have ever happened, I would say, in history.
Downright freaky.
Because let's face it, any murder in itself is very sort of, is dark and sinister by nature. To think that a human mind has been
corrupted.
Yeah, corrupted and driven to the depths that they would then want to commit homicide. But the fact that with the Zodiac killer, the fact that he like wore like a mask and everything, wore like a freaky mask,
and it was all a game.
Yeah, it was all a game.
All a game to him.
He used to send letters to the police, like like taunting them and mocking them and stuff like that. But
yeah, you must be pretty like confident in your in that you've covered things up to be able to actually send clues and stuff to the police. That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, like openly taunting people and stuff like that. It's pretty darn mysterious.
Pretty darn mysterious. Pretty darn dark. Pretty darn psychotic, if you ask me.
I'd agree.
So yeah, to this day, people don't know exactly who.
Oh, it's not been solved.
No,
well, I'll get into it a bit today, but
isn't there? Well, we'll speak about it later. Actually, we'll speak about it. We'll save it.
Okay.
Save it.
Oh,
that's like a picture from one of the survivors about what he looked like.
Have you got up the little sketch? Whoa, I've got a different sketch.
Is
on
that
here, but that looks even creepier.
Is that the one you've got up? Is that with the man with the glasses on?
Yeah.
Oh,
and then next
yeah,
to it, we've
yeah,
got
yeah,
one,
yeah.
we've got like a guy in the same suit.
The garb.
Because a couple of people did survive the incident.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of them, there was described like a man, I think that was fleeing a scene, and that was the sketch I think that you're looking at. And the other one was somebody that actually survived being murdered. And this is what they said he came, like, imagine that being like late at night and then some freaky looking guy like covered in like,
It's
a big black hood on and had these weird symbols
Boxhead.
and stuff.
Have you still got the
terrifying.
picture up, man? You reckon do one more up to the camera with it?
You want me to get that?
Yeah,
Just
just because it's like pretty damn crazy. Yeah, look at that.
I expect Bullwinkle can find it as well.
I think I might have it up, but it could just be a bad version of it.
Crazy.
What this? If you
Yeah,
type
I've
in
got it up.
Zodiac.
Oh
Cut it
yeah,
out.
look at that.
There we go.
Anyway,
The Bart Simpson man with the square head.
we'll get into the story from scratch now of the Zodiac Killer. So, enough with the bants. Enough with the tomfoolery.
Time
Sit back,
for the Zodiac.
relax, and immerse yourself in one of the most fascinating, the most mysterious, and most macabre, unsolved murder mysteries of all time. This is the case of the Zodiac Killer. The Zodiac Killer, also referred to as just the Zodiac, was an enigmatic serial killer active in California in the late 1960s and 1970s. As infamous as he was, he only has a confirmed body count of 5, though he is suspected of committing as many as 37 murders in total.
Whoa. What a gap, can I just say?
Yeah.
Like, to be that far off, they think it's 5, but it could be 37.
Yeah, I guess it's hard to confirm,
Yeah.
fully confirm a murder. Do you know what I mean?
You think
Because of the body count thing, because there's not actually a body been found.
There's one thing saying like, oh, this person's clearly been murdered, but then to say like who exactly is murdered.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I suppose they must, if it's like between that, you'd think there'd be a couple that they're pretty sure on.
Well, I
just
think
can't confirm.
I think they are pretty sure of all the other
Right.
all of the other sort of for 32. Do you know what I mean? But it's like I guess when it comes to things like law, unless you are like 100% proof.
Yeah.
Innocent till proven guilty.
Yeah, even if you're the Zodiac. So, the first known confirmed Zodiac murders took place on December the 20th, 1968 on Lake Herman Road in California. The victims were David Arthur Faraday, age 17, and Betty Lou Jensen, age 16, both of which were shot with a .22 handgun. The Zodiac then remained inactive until July the 4th the following year, when he shot another couple, Michael Magu, 19, and Darlene Ferrin, 22, when they were seated in a parked car on the parking lot of the Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo. Magu survived, though he suffered severe injuries, and was able to provide a description. On August the 1st, the Vallejo Times-Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the San Francisco Chronicle received near identical letters from the Zodiac in which he took credit for the murders, proving his guilt by stating several facts about the crime scenes, such as what the victims were wearing, how their bodies were positioned, and what brand of ammunition he used. The only signature was the Zodiac's symbol. The letters also contained one part of a 3-part cipher designed by the Zodiac, which ordered all 3 papers to publish the ciphers on their front pages and threatened to go on a killing spree over the weekend if they didn't comply. All 3 papers published the cipher, which was cracked after a little more than a week by teachers Donald and Betty Harden. In the decoded message, the Zodiac claimed to have been killing in order to collect slaves for the afterlife. Bit dark, isn't it?
Creepy.
The next Zodiac letter came the day before the cipher was cracked. In it, the Zodiac named himself for the first time and gave more details about the murders. Any questions at this stages, fellas? Any questions at this stages?
Not really.
No?
I think it's quite cool that it's just some random teachers that are the ones that solved the initial cipher.
I always remember, sometimes it's not always the most obvious people that you would think would be like geniuses. I remember my mum always saying that one of the smartest men she ever knew was the taxi driver.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I guess it just takes sometimes like looking at it from a different angle as well, because they would have had people that are like crypto. I don't know what the cryptologists or something.
Crypto psychologists.
What's the term when you're breaking something down?
When you're like an expert of language and of like writing and what's it called? Is it just cryptologists? Oh, no, I don't. I feel like it's not. I feel like we're close. Anyway, we'll find out.
But but there'd have been a lot of them looking for it. So the fact that just some random teachers are the one that decoded it, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Anyway, the next murder took place near Lake Berryessa on September the 27th. This time, the victims, Brian Hartnell, aged 20, and Cecilia Shepherd, aged 22, were tied up and stabbed instead of shot. Hartnell survived his injuries, but Shepherd sadly died 2 days later. During his next killing, the Zodiac diverged from his pattern even further and shot and killed a cab driver, Paul Lee Stein, aged 29, in Presidio Heights in San Francisco on October the 11th after riding in the back with him. This time, a partial fingerprint in blood was found inside the car, along with a pair of gloves, which were, however, considered to be too small to fit the man described by the witnesses. They were later linked to a female passenger of Stein. I see. So the gloves turned out weren't his. At first, the police were led to believe that the killer was black, which was later corrected. Before that, however, a pair of uniformed cops on their way to the crime scene spotted a man fitting the Zodiac's description, dressed in a dark jacket and walking away from the crime scene mere minutes after the shooting. 3 days later, the San Francisco Chronicle received a letter in which the Zodiac threatened to kill all the passengers of a school bus and included a piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt in the letter. Though this was the last of the Zodiac's confirmed killings, he continued writing letters and claiming responsibility for several murders during this time. It is generally believed that he lied for attention. One theory suggested in the Monster, the Zodiac Killer podcast is that other contemporary events got a lot of media attention, such as the Manson family murders and the Vietnam War, and the Zodiac kept writing letters in an effort to stay in the public consciousness. The prime suspect in the case, at least in the eyes of the public, was and remains Arthur Lee Allen. I don't think it was Arthur Lee Allen, but we'll get into that. We'll get into that a bit later.
Cool.
The authorities began investigating him after they were told by one of his former friends, Donald Cheney, that Allen had told him about an idea he had for a novel about a serial killer who called himself Zodiac. And he did several things the Zodiac killer did or threatened to do, such as taping a flashlight to his gun and killing the passengers of a school bus.
And he did this before the killings?
So he told his friend he was going to write a book about this, and then it was like, this actually started happening. In hindsight, Cheney's story has been viewed with a lot of skepticism, in part because Allen was accused of molesting one of Cheney's sons, but also because his account of when Allen supposedly told him has shifted over the years and sometimes added details not present in the first telling. For example, after the abduction of Kathleen Johns, Cheney also started saying that Allen had talked about tricking women into thinking their tyres were coming off and using that as an excuse to loosen them, like what happened to Johns. So it's like almost like this guy had a vendetta against him and was almost like trying to frame him. Also worth noting is that Cheney and Allen's situation isn't unique, and there were other people at the time who made similar claims about people they knew. Allen was, however, a skin diver who had been to Lake Berryessa on several occasions. He also admitted to having had bloody knives in his car on the weekend of the stabbing, but claimed that the blood came from a chicken he had killed for dinner.
Oh, I don't know. Slaughter the chickens for dinner.
See, like, even though there's a lot of evidence against this guy, I don't think it's him. I think this guy was also a really messed up guy, because it said it's confirmed that this guy molested a child.
Yeah.
And he was obviously a bit of a weirdo.
And I guess that's what gives it more credence.
Yeah.
I was going to say as well, around this time, wasn't there was like loads of people that were making false claims to be him. So like people would, obviously he originally was writing in these notes to the press and everything once, or the police, once he'd committed the murders. But people all around like America, I think, were literally just making up their own ciphers and like pretending to be him and sending them into the press.
So it made it a lot harder.
Yeah.
So it was almost like they were like inadvertently helping.
Original?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like he was crowded. Think of it as like Joker, where Joker's always crowded by like all these people wearing clown masks. Yeah. He's almost crowded by all these other people pretending to be him.
Yeah, I think as well. Like obviously, like language experts and like handwriting experts can sort of decipher which ones they think are the real Zodiac and not. But even so, do you know what I mean? It's so time consuming to even find that out. After a warrant for his trailer and a handwriting was secured and carried out, the man's fingerprints were compared to the partial from the cab, and his guns compared to the Zodiac evidence, and his handwriting to that of the letters. None of the tests came back a match, so Alan was let go. I mean, I think that's pretty, as it is. Also, apparently, the Zodiac killer from the survivors was like quite like a slender man, whereas apparently this guy Alan was like quite like a big brutish man.
Right.
So it just didn't really fit. And also, the guy that the police also saw walking away from that crime scene like minutes after those people were killed. Apparently, he was like quite slender and had like glasses and hair, whereas Alan was bald. He was like, and like not even intentionally bald. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like he could have shaved his head since that time. He was like, didn't have any hair.
Yeah.
And he was like quite like a big brutish man, as I said. Whereas the Zodiac, the other suspect, which I think seems a more intriguing suspect, the one that the police saw walking away from the crime scene just moments after it happened. The other said he was quite like slender and had glasses and hair, and was quite like quite like a different slender, looking, average height sort of man. He didn't look like a typical sort of big brutish sort of person. In 1991, Mago was tracked down and shown a lineup of old photos of Zodiac suspects. After he fingered Alan as the killer, there were talks about formally charging him with the murders based on circumstantial evidence against him. Alan died of natural causes before any trial could take place, and to this day the case remains unsolved, and the Zodiac killer's identity is still unknown.
So officially he was officially they thought it was him.
Well, I think because they didn't charge him in time, it wasn't even like put through as official.
Right.
They wanted to put the blame on him, so to speak. But I think you've also got to bear in mind this, and I guess the police shouldn't, well, I don't know, it's easy for me to say the police shouldn't do this. I understand why they do. But one criticism against the police is sometimes if they're almost like a case is going crazy enough and they haven't got anyone, they almost like try to pin the blame on somebody
just so it's dealt with, and
to stop public hysteria. Because if people are like terrified to go out at night and stuff like that, then it's like really bad for morale, isn't it? Almost like worldwide, like in the whole of California, like you're not going to want to go out after dark.
No.
So it's just like bad for business, so to speak.
It makes me think as well, like I wonder how many murders, say in America, I know everyone's completely different and whoever's doing the murder will be completely different, but like how many murders go unsolved? Are more murders solved than unsolved generally, do you think?
That's a good question.
Do you know what I mean?
That's
like, because I would, in my head, it'd be like most ones you'd hope like people do come to justice and things will be solved, but stuff like this, it's
how many people that are convicted for murders turn out to be innocent.
I read this thing recently that I've just searched up again. At any one time, it's believed that there are around 25 to 50 active serial killers lurking in the dark corners of the USA, stalking the streets and highways for their next potential victim.
It's crazy.
There's a I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but there's one serial killer.
Jack the Ripper.
That's another one we should do at some point.
Yeah, there's one American serial killer that I'm trying to think of in my head, and he was
still around today.
Well, no, he got caught very in the end, but he had killed like a ridiculous amount of people.
Really?
Right.
And apparently, what was even weirder was that like when he was found, like a lot of serial killers are like deranged to the point where they can't like function normally. But one thing I remember thinking was crazy about this guy was apparently he had like a really loving wife and everything like that, and like she was like shocked like when she found out, because apparently he was like a really decent loving husband, like never was even like the slightest bit abusive, like it wasn't weird,
but just compartmentalized this dark.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. Like compartmentalized. Like he had like completely successfully compartmentalized it.
Yeah,
it never leaked through into his normal life, so he didn't even act weird. You hear about people like Jeffrey Dahmer about how they used to like mutilate animals when they were little, and then Ed Gein who had like lampshades made of human skin. Like this is like horror movie stuff. Like the people like that couldn't have a functional marriage.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Whereas this guy was like not only did he have a normal marriage, but like by all accounts his wife almost like made out
loving
almost made that he was like the perfect husband.
Yeah,
and he had like a job and everything.
Yeah, had a job. Had like good. I think he might have even had kids, and like was like a good dad. I need to remember his name. But I could picture his face in my head. He was almost like quite like a small guy. Might have been like redheaded, and he had like glasses and looked almost like just like a really nice, quaint guy.
Inconspicuous.
Could you imagine being that guy's wife? Like that would completely alter your whole view of
reality.
Reality.
Yeah. Just like something that you're so sure that you know.
Even just being like a friend of his, you know, and like you're like, oh, this guy's pretty normal.
Well, I guess it would be like us finding out that like our mums were like serial killers or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you know what I mean? Because that's how crazy it would have been to her. Like somebody that you just wouldn't think in a million years, but you just think of as like, you know, not capable of that in a million years.
Yeah.
That like they're secretly, they've just got this part of them that's just been hidden, completely hidden from the world their entire lives. I need to find out what his name was. Yeah. That would be my next Mystery Mondays. Anyway, let's concentrate on some of the Zodiac letters for a bit. The Zodiac is known to have sent many cryptographic, taunting and puzzling letters to the authorities, the press and famed lawyer Melvin Belly.
Melvin Belly.
In these letters, the Zodiac made his intentions and wishes known, as well as allegedly his state of mind. In some, he would include odd drawings, mosaics of photos, and astrological charts. The first letters included a cipher which, he claimed, hid his identity. It eventually revealed a disturbing piece where he clarified his motivations, but it didn't include anything that could be identified as a name. Below are some of the letters the Zodiac sent to the San Francisco Police Department and the local newspapers. To date, almost none of the ciphers have been definitively solved. The exceptions are the initial 408-character cipher, which was solved not long after the newspapers received them, by Donald Hardin, the school teacher we already talked about, and his wife, Betty Hardin. And the so-called 340-letter cipher, which was solved in 2020, so really recently, by David Oranchak, an American software engineer, and Sam Blake, an Australian mathematician, along with Jarl van Eyck, a Belgian computer program.
Because they are like crazy good ciphers, aren't they?
Yeah,
I remember
like
hearing
ridiculously
that.
Good.
They're
ridiculously good.
Like better than they would use even in like wars and
as
stuff.
I said, like a lot of like the best detectives and stuff all across San Francisco and California and stuff were like trying to break these and stuff. Like really, really smart people that were used to trying to do these things, and they just like couldn't do them.
And I think that's what made this sort of like case quite shocking and scary.
He must have been a genius.
Was so intelligent and so smart.
If somebody said to you today, right, you've got to make like a foolproof cipher, I wouldn't know where to start.
Yeah, I wouldn't know where to start.
I mean, I know sort of like, you know, you can do like some rudimentary ones, like, you know, so like a letter would be like a code for another letter. But even that's like quite basic. Do you know what I mean? So like a J would mean like a Y. So, but then it's like, that's quite basic. Do you know what I mean? Some of these ciphers are like super complicated.
That'd be quite fun to try that, actually. Like, just swap letters over in an alphabet and try and like write something. So let's try and figure out what the Zodiac's modus operandi was. One thing that I kind of think a little bit when you were first saying about the people that he killed, it seemed to be couples, young couples.
Yes.
That was like one of the things,
also,
wasn't it?
I think that's also one of the things that makes it quite creepy, because we all know what it's like, say, like, you know, when you're a teenager, well, Bullwinkle still is one, when, say, like, you know, you're out with your missus and you just think, oh, I'm just going to, like, pull up at, like, some nice romantic naturey spot, and like, you know, it's
watch
getting...
the sunset and have a smooch.
It's getting dark, and say, like, the sunset's gone down and then it's got dark. And then almost like, imagine, that's like proper horror movie style, suddenly like this man in a mask just suddenly like attacks your car and just instantly just like, out of nowhere just tries to kill you and your missus. That's straight up like...
It's like a classic trope from like horror movies.
That's like Halloween style. Yeah. Like a man in a mask trying to kill you, like you know, like Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees type stuff, that is.
And the other weird thing as well is like a few people survived. Like you would think if he was like, he's an amazing cipher person, but like you know, it seems like he slipped up a little few times with actually killing them, like you know.
But then I guess when it's someone this intelligent, you've got to question whether that was almost like part of the plan.
I was going to say that.
Yeah,
I was going to say that. Yeah, maybe it was deliberate. Who knows? Or maybe he just didn't really care. Maybe he'd had like. My
work has been done with you anyway.
Maybe his like bloodlust had been like satisfied that evening. So it was like the fact of like actually killing them or not wasn't the point. It was just almost like enacting that brutality.
Because finishing off what I was saying earlier about how intelligent he is, I swear they have like, or they had. I know this wasn't what solved the ciphers, but they had like supercomputers that were trying to solve it and just never could.
Crack Enigma back out.
Yeah. So let's try and let's dive back in. From the accounts of the few survivors of the known Zodiac attacks, it is generally believed that the Zodiac dressed in black clothing of various types, depending on the month, and at least on one occasion wore a dark hood decorated with the Zodiac symbol on it. His methods varied also, with some victims being dispatched by an automatic pistol, or sometimes bladed weapons, most notably what was probably a military-style knife. According to one of his letters, He, during the Christmas killings, had a pencil-sized flashlight taped to his gun in order to be able to shoot in the dark. The Zodiac's usual pattern of attack was to target Caucasian teenage couples and strike when they were in some secluded area. Mostly what's named as like lovers' lanes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And or in a car, and kill them by either shooting them or stabbing them with a knife. His method of approaching them is known to have varied. When he attacked Magoo and Ferrin, he just walked up to the car and started shooting at them without saying a word. While during the Hartnell Shepherd stabbing, he approached them pretending to be a robber, before instructing Shepherd to tie up Hartnell with some pre-cut lengths of rope, and then tying up herself. During the latter killing, he claimed to have been an escaped convict who had killed a guard and needed their car and money so he could flee to Mexico. When he killed Paul Stein, he got into his taxi, shot him in the head with a 9mm, took his wallet, car keys, and a bloodied piece of his shirt, the latter of which he would send then to the Chronicle. He also most likely intentionally acted in locations where jurisdictions overlapped as a mean of slowing down the authorities. In one of his letters, he claimed to have killed some of his victims by fire and by rope. Though cases involving strangulation were linked to the Zodiac, such as the Santa Rosa hitchhiker murders, no cases involving arson were ever linked to him. So that's weird. It's like, did he actually kill somebody and they were just never found or something? I think that's quite cool though, like the Santa Rosa hitchhiker murders. So it's like he claimed he took responsibility for them, but them and themselves are like really brutal murders that are just called the hitchhiker murders, which in itself sounds quite ominous, doesn't it?
Yeah.
After the Ferrin, Magoo and Hartnell Shepherd attacks, he called whichever police department was closest to where the attacks occurred from a payphone and then claimed responsibility for the crimes. That's so bullshit, isn't it?
That's what I mean. Like, to be that like confident in the fact that you're going to escape or just not care, like it's so weird to me. Like,
the fact that he went out of his way, it said to call whichever police department was closest. So imagine like committing a crime in Bridgewater and then ringing up the Bridgewater police station
just before making your escape.
That's like so like, I guess it would be like, maybe he was like same. It seems like with some of this stuff, he's getting off on the adrenaline.
Off the fear of getting caught.
I mean, think about how much of adrenaline rush that would almost be like, no, I've got to escape in there, everyone's looking for me. Like, seems almost like twisted, but almost like, really almost like he's getting off the adrenaline. Say that the Zodiac Killer was profiled by an author called John Douglas in his book, The Cases That Haunt Us. Zodiac has been profiled as being a narcissistic with paranoid social misfit disorder, and he was obviously a loner, who was mainly driven by the need for attention, power, and most of all, credibility. He felt the urge to prove his intellectual superiority in order to compensate his own feelings of inferiority and inadequacy. The UNSUB had also a self-conscious compulsiveness, meaning that he was obsessed with others, underestimating him and underappreciating his skills, being also convinced that society had wronged him. In all likelihood, he spent the majority of his life with his mother, with whom he had a difficult relationship with at best, and was not very successful, if at all, with women.
Who's this?
The Zodiac. This is like an expert who's profiled the Zodiac.
So we don't actually know his mother. So this is like speculating.
Yeah, they're saying like, you know, these like criminal psychologists who are like experts in profiling. He's like, for a living, they literally try and, you know, like the criminal psychologists, you know, they literally try and figure out exactly what's making these people tick. A bit like that real boss woman, you know, that took the stand for Johnny Depp, you know, with the glasses. You know that one, she psychoanalyzed Amber Heard after spending time with her and stuff. It was deemed probable that he had some relations with both Riverside Cottage, where Cherry Joe Bates, a suspected Zodiac victim, was killed. Douglas was indeed fairly sure to attribute this murder to him, and Deer Lodge, Montana, the location of the prison he allegedly named during the Hartnell Shepherd attack. However, the validity of this claim is doubtful, as the prison name was merely deduced by a policeman who interrogated survivor Brian Hartnell. Interesting as well that he came up with these like weird little scenarios, like when he he claimed to be like a robber that escaped from prison, and then like forced those people to tie them up before just stabbing them loads. That's
almost
weird.
Like he wants to like get the fear out of them. Like he's playing.
But it's almost like weird. It's like weird role play.
Scenarios.
It's like he's not even like content just to like be like the same, you know, to be like the Zodiac every time. It's like everyone he has like a different scenario. It's really weird. Scenarios. He may have spent some time in the military, probably in the Air Force or the Navy, where he was likely trained in codes. If this was the case, he would have been soon discharged out of medical reasons or no reasons given, because he couldn't cut it in such a structured, disciplined environment in the long term. He likely was familiar with weapons, being probably a hunter, and had technical expertise, demonstrating skill with numbers and codes. He also might have had a private work area where he kept the materials he needed for his writings and press coverage of his crimes. He probably complained with a confidant of some kind, most likely another loner, about law enforcement demonstrating incapacity in the Zodiac case. In his letters, as in his crimes, the offender displayed a double nature, well educated and highly intelligent, but also illiterate and highly organised, although at least in some instances disorganised. For instance, as Drupert mentioned, he left survivors, he left a fingerprint in one case, and was seen, or at least thought to have been seen, by several witnesses, including 2 policemen. This combination provides a mixed representation. It is also apparent from his communications that the Zodiac was prone to mood swings, sometimes being cleverly taunting, and sometimes falling from grace, trying to compensate his fear and inferiority complex through virulent words or gross tauntings. Yes, very interesting guy, isn't it? He seems like completely like haywire.
Yeah.
Like his brain seems all over the place. And I said like quite an interesting mixture as well. Like, because if you look at his letters, even though, as we were saying, like the ciphers are like genius and stuff, like his handwriting's like awful, for example. I can't say much. My handwriting's not very good either. But it's just almost like quite an interesting mix. And they said that like, but it's not just his handwriting. Apparently, you know, like some of the words he spelt and stuff were like, they were spelt wrong.
Yeah.
Which to me is almost like quite like a buffoon thing, especially if you're like trying to come across as intelligent. Do you know what I mean? But it's like the ciphers themselves are like genius, but then he's like the words that he's writing in his letters and that are like almost like written by like a child.
Like
really
how do you
weird, isn't
catch someone that erratic?
Yeah.
Well, that's part of the problem, isn't it? How do you even profile someone that's like that? You are that unprofilable.
You'd hope that they slip up like really badly or something, but it's like he never slips up bad enough for them to catch him, but he's like slipped up in like loads of little ways, you know. And it's like weird, as they were saying, you know, like sometimes he's almost like taunting, and then other times he's almost like seems almost like angry in that, you know. It's like quite an interesting mixture, isn't it? Like almost because it's almost like random, isn't it? Like you normally think like to be angry and something, do you know what I mean? Like somebody would have to make you angry, but it's almost like every day he's like a slightly different person.
Yeah.
It's deemed likely by the author Douglas that as the Zodiac was constantly trying to sophisticate himself and his modus operandi, the most probable cause for his sudden stop was his own fear of running out of luck, after having presumably been spotted and interrogated by 2 uniformed patrolmen just minutes after the murder of Paul Stein. It cannot be excluded also that the Zodiac committed suicide after the murders ended. Murray Myron, a criminologist and colleague of Douglas, upon analysing the letter Zodiac sent to Melvin Belly on December 1969, concluded that he was suffering from severe depression and that he was going to eventually commit suicide. I wonder how he came to that conclusion.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, probably, you know, smart stuff that I expect if it was explained to us, we'd eventually go like, oh. But we'd probably have to like explain it to us for about 2 hours. Douglas, in turn, although convinced that the Zodiac did feel even more alone and alienated around Christmas time, and agreeing with the fact that he would have committed suicide one day, thought the letter was a play for sympathy. So we thought it was like a red herring, I guess. 2 different ways of looking at it. A theory proposed by Anglo-Canadian criminologist Lee Mellor was that the Zodiac, by sending letters and leaving messages on the crime scenes, was dealing with a process of identity negotiation. Due to his feelings of inadequacy, he wasn't capable of having an acceptable identity and suffered from recurring crisis, trying to recompose his fragmented identity in the guise of a self-styled, self-named killer. The majority of the excessive and transformative criminals analysed by Mellor was single, sustained having never grown up, presenting an unstable vocation and unstable masculinity, also with being obsessed with police and military. Criminologist Donald Lund theorised the Zodiac was a sexual sadist who killed as a substitute for his lack of sex. That's weird, isn't it?
And, you know, maybe that's why he targeted young couples as well. It's like jealous.
Yes.
Jealous of them.
I think that's probably a big thing. You see that as well, like, you know with like say like the Jack the Ripper, it's like he targeted a lot of like young female
Prostitutes.
prostitutes.
Yeah.
It's like he was it was like he had like he felt like anger and disgust with, I guess, with like women, especially like very sexually active women. You know, like and he felt like they needed to be punished. Like that's obviously shows that he either has like mummy issues or had like some sort of issues with himself not being able to have a relationship with a woman, or maybe not being able to like form a bond with a woman to the point where a woman would actually naturally want to have sex with him. Weird. Survivors and witnesses of the Zodiac attacks described him as approximately 5'8" to 5'10" inches in height, having curly brown or light reddish brown hair, worn in a crew cut. So I just started reading that and I was like, Drew. Drew is the Zodiac killer. Curly brown or light reddish brown. Wearing horn-rimmed eyeglasses and usually wore dark clothing. Usually wool trousers and a dark navy blue or black windbreaker jacket, with distinctive military jump boots known as wingwalkers. He was of medium or ever so slightly stocky build. One survivor describes the Zodiac as having an odd gait. That is, he had a peculiar lumbering walk. That's creepy. That's just what you want for a serial killer, innit?
Yeah.
A weird walk, you know? Because
a normal he had to walk strange.
Like lumbering around like some little freakazoid. Boot prints found at the Hartnell Shepherd crime scene were size 10.5. I assume that's American size, so that'd be 9.5 in the UK. Because I don't really know why, but American sizes are like 1.
Yeah, weird, isn't it?
I've been caught out by that before.
Have you? You went to America and bought some shoes and then they weren't the right size?
These shoes I bought too big, thinking it was the other way around, and I bought some others that ended up being too small.
Don't wear them because you'll get bunions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Survivor Brian Hartnell described the Zodiac's voice as very slow and measured, and having a unique sound and cadence with a monotone. That's a bit creepy as well, isn't it?
This guy's stumbling up to you and he's like, now it's time for you to die.
I am an escaped robber from the prison.
Yeah.
Tie yourselves up with this rope. So, yeah. There are several suspects. Arthur Lee Allen, which we've already mentioned. Jack Tarrance was another one. He was a man, he died in 2006. He was a man that was honourably discharged from the US Air Force and Navy. He was a radio station operator. And he worked in a steel company as well. He was reported by his stepson, Dennis Kaufman, as maybe being the Zodiac. Kaufman turned over several pieces of evidence, including a hood similar to the one described by one of the victims, handwriting samples, an undeveloped photo film reel, one of which contained gruesome images. I like how that's ambiguous. I want them to go into more detail.
Yeah, what were those gruesome images?
Yeah, like did he like kill some animals and then like take pictures of it or something? A knife covered with dried blood. And a recorded phone conversation in which Tarrance may indirectly hint that he was the Zodiac. DNA testing by the FBI proved inconclusive, however. I think that's the cool thing about this case is like there are several people which are almost like, if you read them out like alone, if you didn't read the rest of them, you'd almost be compelled to believe it. But there's several people that are like that. Lawrence Larry Kane is another one. He died in 2010. He matched the Zodiac description. He was strongly attached to his mother. He had military experience serving in the US Navy as a sailor. He attended Navy radio material... Where all these people are in the radio. Attended Navy radio's material school where he trained in ciphering and deciphering Navy codes. Oh, I see. I see. This is probably one of the reasons why. Worked various white-collar jobs. He was known to be a peeping Tom, a prowler, and a con man, and was arrested for these and several other crimes during his lifetime. So he's a bit of like a weird pervert in that.
Hiding in the bushes.
A pervert and a con man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which would almost like fit in with the whole like making out that he's like a robber. It's such a weird thing, I think, you know.
Is there like a theory? I don't know if there is or not. that it could be multiple people.
I was literally just thinking that. Like,
Because
imagine if it was like
There must be.
a Zodiac club.
Yeah.
And they,
We're the Zodiac Club.
do you know what I mean? Like an underground.
Because that
like,
would explain the
yeah.
inconsistencies and everything as well.
Mm.
With them like acting different sometimes.
Like
and
a
sometimes
cult,
being
like a
bit more
Zodiac
sloppy.
cult.
Exactly.
And they would like kind of
The cult of Cosmos.
try and kill people, but in a similar way with the hood and that.
That would. Do you know what? I mean, that must have been a theory. Let's face it, I doubt
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Imagine that.
yeah.
We've cracked it, guys. We're the first people since all this happened. In like, this happened in like
the first
1970.
people to think that
Yeah.
it might have been all of them.
In 50 years, we got it. We're the ones that got it. Yeah, that would, because it seems weird. Like with that big like Lee Allen guy, he seemed like a bit of like a lumbering oaf, almost like a bit of a lumbering buffoon. But at the same time, it does seem weird that literally he was just driving around like the area where those people were stabbed with just like bloody knives in his boot.
Yeah, couldn't they done like DNA tests on the blood to match the victims and stuff? You know.
Well, they said that it was from where he killed a chicken, but surely, I'm sure.
Yeah, you test that.
It didn't say anything from what I found. It hasn't said anything that like they tested the blood and it turned out to be a chicken or anything. Like,
No,
it's weird, isn't it?
you could pretty much like see
Yeah.
if that's true or not. couldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should have been on the case.
Yeah.
This is another intriguing one. So obviously the Zodiac murders were thought to have started happening in the late 60s, whereas this guy, Lawrence Larry Kane, as well as being a peeping Tom, a con man and a prowler, who was arrested and having skills which would have made him good at enciphering and deciphering codes, and having military experience, all this stuff. He also suffered an accident in 1962, which
Made him lumbering.
according to medical reports compromised his control of self-gratification, as they called it. But I guess what they're saying is it made him a bit unstable.
Oh,
You know what I
okay.
mean? So like by control of self-gratification, like normal things that most people would do that would just make them feel happy and gratified, and like I guess like just like what's the word I'm looking for when you begins with a C, when you're like content.
Oh yeah.
You know,
yeah.
feelings of content. Like usually we have small feelings of content, you know. Have a nice workout, feel pretty happy with it. You know what I mean?
Nice
Like
meal.
do a good day's of work.
Yeah.
You're pretty happy with it. You know what I mean? Like I guess like that was all askew. So he had to do like weird and extreme things
get that
to get
gratification.
feelings of gratification. Yeah. He lived in the vicinity of the spot where approximately the Zodiac was picked up by Paul Stein on the night he was shot. So that's another thing. So he lived very
Pretty close
clear
by.
that where the taxi driver picked up the guy, the taxi driver that was shot. He lived and worked in South Lake Tahoe, from which a suspected Zodiac victim, Donna Lass, disappeared. He also worked in the vicinity of Lass's workplace, and co-workers said that Kane and Lass knew each other. He was identified by Darlene Ferrin's sisters, Pam and Linda, as the man who harassed Darlene before her murder at the hands of the Zodiac killer. However, both identified several other people before Kane, one of which was George Waters, and another man, William Grant. So their claims are deemed quite doubtful. So it's weird. So these girls said that
Pointing fingers at a few people.
Yeah, I mean, they said that this guy had like harassed Darlene before her murder, but then they also had already like pointed the finger at two other guys before. The thing I think is weird about this though is like, I mean, even like like America's much bigger, say, than the UK, right? And even in like a town like we don't live in a city, we live in a town.
Yeah.
But like I feel like there's so many people in this town alone that like what are the chances that like people would have had all these like run-ins with people?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I think like somewhere
All
like
these connections.
somewhere like California, like San Francisco, it's like a big city. Like what are the chances that all these people would have like all had run-ins with each other and like known each other? It's a bit weird, don't you think? It's a bit strange. He was identified also, although not with absolute certainty, by one of the policemen who presumably spotted the Zodiac minutes after the murder of Paul Stein. Also identified by Kathleen Johns, a suspected Zodiac victim, as the man whom abducted her and her daughter. So there's a lot of evidence for this guy.
Yeah.
A lot of evidence, isn't there? Retired Vallejo detective Ed Rust believes that Kane is the killer, as well as Donna Lass, as being one of his victims. He was also identified by Donna Lass's friend Larry Lowe as having been interested in astrology. Zodiac killer, astrology. He was described by the people around him that knew him, including even his friend John Miles, as a complete egomaniac. You know, somebody that would get off on almost like the thrill of,
right,
and almost like the superiority of not only imposing your will on people, but then taunting other people with your intellect, sort of thing. He was also diagnosed in 1943 with psychoneurosis hysteria.
He sounds a bit crazy, man.
He does, doesn't he?
You wouldn't want to run into any of these people.
Another suspect is Bruce Davis, who is still alive today. He was one of the Manson family members.
Ooh.
So he was in the I almost said Marilyn Manson cult. He was in the Charles Manson cult, as is portrayed, by the way, in the very good Brad Pitt movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
Yeah, it's so good.
Someone we worked with said they didn't think it was very good, but I thought it was great. Love that scene when he had a fight with Bruce Lee as well. Bruce Davis was, however, cleared along with other members of Charles Manson's family. So, yeah, it doesn't look like it was him. Another man that was suspected was Richard Rick Marshall, who'd passed away in 2008. According to some acquaintances, he lived in Riverside at the time of Jerry Joe Bates' murder. He was a US Navy sailor. He had code training. He was a silent movie theatre projectionist. It's just an interesting little fact there. He was a movie buff.
Keep him.
Oh, he was also a radio enthusiast.
It's a lot of radio people, aren't there?
That's weird.
Part of the cult, maybe? Yeah. The club?
He was known to have had a very bad temper, especially with women. Named Donald Jeff Andrews in Gray Smith's non-fiction book. Oh, okay, so there's the non-fiction book, The Zodiac, which I think is what the movie's based on. Some of the people were given different names. So in that, if you're familiar, if you've read the book or seen the movie, the character Donald Jeff Andrews in that is this man, Richard Rick Marshall. Another suspect was Louis Myers, who passed away in 2002. He admitted on his deathbed to being the Zodiac killer.
What?
He went to the same high school as the first confirmed male and female victims. He worked at the same building as the second female victim. He had access to the type of military boots the Zodiac is known to have worn through his father's job. He served in the US Army. He worked as a long-haul truck driver. He had a criminal record in Vallejo for petty, unrelated crimes such as theft and disorderly conduct. He was stationed at a military base in Germany during the Zodiac's alleged hiatus, which would explain why the Zodiac just for some reason just stopped killing for a while. Because if he was in Germany. You know? But, with all this said, he did not fit the description of the Zodiac given by witnesses. Another suspect is Earl Van Best Jr., who passed away all the way back now in 1984. He was named as a suspect by his own son, Gary Stewart, in his book The Most Dangerous Animal of All. Stewart claimed that Best's name and usual signature, E.V. Best Jr., could be found in the Zodiac's untranslated ciphers. However, his method for finding them, which was finding a single letter per line and putting them together, can be used to find a ridiculous amount of names, making this suggestion quite improbable. Stewart hired a handwriting expert, Mike Wachscholl, who went on to write his own book about his involvement in the case called The End of the Zodiac Mystery, where Wachscholl claimed that handwriting samples from documents obtained from a certain church that were supposedly written by Best matched the handwriting in the Zodiac's letters. However, when a Zodiac theorist contacted the church and asked about this, it turned out that the documents had actually been written by the church's reverend, and that the handwriting samples Wachscholl based his conclusion on came from a total of 3 different people. So basically, it seemed like it was a load of rubbish. Another suspect, so many, isn't there, was Richard Gajkowski.
We still haven't gotten to the main one that I've heard of.
Have we not?
No.
So Richard Gajkowski, he passed away in 2004. He matched the Zodiac's description. He served in the US Army. He worked as an investigative reporter for the Contra Costa newspaper. Also worked for a rival newspaper to the one Darlene Ferrin's husband worked for in Albany, New York, while both Gajkowski and Darlene lived there. He was known as a drug user and an anti-police activist. Gajkowski had the habit of shortening his last name to 4 letters and use of multiple spellings such as Geik or Gake. The word Geik can clearly be seen in Zodiac's 3-part cipher that was mailed on July the 31st, 1969. That's quite interesting. Very interesting. Paul Stein's sister recognised Gakowski as having attended her brother's funeral, but neither Gakowski nor Paul knew each other. That's
Weird.
He was diagnosed with a mental illness shortly before the Zodiac's alleged hiatus. When the Zodiac re-emerged, he was operating a storefront theatre in San Francisco. Nancy Slover, the police dispatcher who spoke with the Zodiac in July 1969, identified Gakowski's voice as the one being the closest to the Zodiac's voice.
So the Zodiac actually spoke to the police?
Yeah, I spoke on the phone. In 1986, the Napa County Sheriff's Department briefly investigated Gakowski. Meanwhile, the California Department of Justice determined that Gakowski's handwriting had consistencies with Zodiac's handwriting, and more samples of Gakowski's printing were requested. Those samples were determined, though, not to be a match. He was considered as the prime suspect by Zodiac killer scholar Tom Voigt. Well, another thing I think is fascinating about this case is there are so many experts that almost have their own, that are almost like convinced about different people.
Yeah.
And they all seem pretty likely, each suspect that you hear about. There's
So
like
weird.
loads of evidence and stuff for each one. It's weird.
It's very strange, isn't it? Very strange. Very strange. Another suspect is called George Waters. He was identified by police reports as a man who had harassed Darlene Ferrin for some time before she was killed by the Zodiac. But he was cleared as a suspect by Vallejo police in 1969. Also Michael O'Hare, who was a public policy professor at the University of California. He was accused of being the Zodiac killer by Gareth Penn, a true crime author and amateur detective. Starting around 1981, amateur newspapers and newsletters and self-published books. It's weird, some of these doesn't really go on to explain why or something like that.
I was going to say, it's so crazy that there's actually this many prime suspects.
Another one's Ross Sullivan. He was a library assistant at Riverside City College and which was attended by possible Zodiac victim Cherry Jo Pates. His co-workers suspected him of the murder, noting that he had gone missing for several days around the time that each murder happened. He was hospitalised multiple times for bipolar disorder and for schizophrenia. He resembled the sketch of the Zodiac's face, and he wore military-style boots every day with footprints similar to the ones the Zodiac had left behind at the Lake Berryessa crime scene, the one where he stabbed the people and made them...
Who was this one, sorry? I missed his name.
Ross Sullivan.
Okay.
This is another real
Yet another one.
Yeah, he disappeared like all around the time of the murders. Wore like boots every day, which like matched the footprints of around the people. Of like,
And all these people...
And he had bipolar and schizophrenia.
What's baffling is like so many of these people were all in the same place.
Yeah.
Not a place you want to go live in, is it?
No.
There's a lot of weirdos about.
Yeah.
Do you know what makes... I just suddenly like dawned on me. I remember like recently... I think it was back like ages ago actually, Drew. It's just like I overheard it the other day because Emily was listening to it. It was the last episode where Bullwinkle wasn't on Pandora's, and we were talking about how like friendlier people are up north, and I was saying like I think it's weird to almost like walk past somebody and not say hello, and then just like when we were talking about that then I almost got like a weird almost sort of like think. Who knows about like all the people that you've just said hello to, like walking past them in like a village or in a town or whatever, just to almost like break the silence and the awkwardness. Like, I wonder how many of those people have been like harbouring weird, dark secrets or something. How many of those people have had like severe mental disorders or like, you know, got weird, dark secrets? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And you just think they're just like some nice, normal person. And you're like, well, I say like normal person, like what is normal? But you know what I mean? Like, not somebody that's going to like potentially be the Zodiac.
No.
The next Zodiac. Yeah.
Is that all of the...
That's pretty much. All right, so let's go on to some of the actual confirmed killings.
I was going to say quickly, just on the note, about Gary Francis Post.
Right.
Who is the main one that I've heard of.
Is he the one that's been like really recent?
Yeah. So in October 2021, a team of cold case investigators...
They think it's him.
...called the Case Breakers claimed to have finally unmasked the killer as Gary Francis Post.
Gaza, for sure.
Gary Francis Post was a US Air Force veteran who had came from California. He was 80 years old at the time of his death in August 2018. Various media reports on Post suggest that he was a violent man. According to the San Francisco Chronicle, the newspaper was contacted 6 years ago by a male relative of Post who said he lived in the town of Groveland, around 150 miles from San Francisco. This relative accused Post of being the Zodiac killer and of having tried to have killed him with a hammer. When the Chronicle contacted Californian police, they said that there didn't appear to be any connection between Post and the Zodiac killer. Then Post's former daughter-in-law, Michelle Wynn, also accused him of being the serial killer.
Whoa.
I think there was like, I'm just going to quickly read through, but I think there was like loads of different things like he'd posted on Facebook that, or no, this was one of the things on like all the books and TV shows. He had accounts where like every single book and TV show and movie and everything about the Zodiac killer, he'd left reviews on.
Oh, really?
Saying like not as good as the real thing, 1 star, and stuff like that. And then the people look back on like his Facebook and someone that he knew like posted a photo with him going fishing like 20 years back and was like, just going fishing with the Zodiac.
Whoa.
And stuff like that.
Whoa, that's
Strange.
Yeah. And he looks like exactly like the sketch of the guy.
Really?
With the glasses and everything, yeah. But yeah.
That's pretty cool, man. So that seems like it was like all of the suspects. Just to sort of wrap up, as I briefly mentioned earlier, the Zodiac killer was also suspected as being the murderer behind the so-called Santa Rosa hitchhiker murders, in which at least 7 female hitchhikers were all murdered in Sonoma County and Santa Rosa between 1972 and 1973. The suspicion was based upon similarities between an unknown symbol in one of his letters and the Chinese characters left behind on a soy barrel that was carried by one of the victims. He had also stated his intention to vary his MO in another letter beforehand.
What's MO mean?
Modus operandi. So he said. So I guess like the Zodiac killer said that he was going to like switch up his like style and approach just to constantly throw people off. So he could have just gone on and done all these different murders all across the US, and if he just sort of did it in a different way, but it's almost like he couldn't help himself maybe and like left a little Zodiac symbol on just one, just to almost make people go. Another thing that almost makes it weird about this Arthur Lee Allen guy, you know, the original suspect I mentioned about, who was like the big brutish one. And one weird thing about him though was that independent from the Zodiac, Arthur Lee Allen was yet again independently suspected of being the hitchhiker killer. The reasons for this was that he owned a mobile home in Santa Rosa at the time of the killings. He attended Sonoma State College, and he was tracking and killing chipmunks, like for fun. That was like one of the things he was doing around the time of the murders. And apparently, chipmunk hairs were found on all of the victims.
Chipmunk hairs?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
What?
He's another one.
What's another weird thing though, and it just almost goes to show that like evil spreads evil. It almost reminds me of like Sith Lords. You know how like it almost only takes like one to like corrupt like a Jedi, and then they'll go. Like there's one thing about the Zodiac. He's like spawned copycat killers. So several murderers have come on. One of them is Heriberto Seda. Another one's a Japanese guy also called Saito Sakakibara.
And these ones have been confirmed to have done their
murders, so they've like done, you know, they've done their murders, but they all basically said that they were like inspired by the Zodiac. Yeah. And they wanted to like, you know, they wanted to be like the new Zodiacs.
Crazy.
And they've all done like weird things, like so like the Heriberto Seda, he targeted his victims based on their Zodiac signs. Yeah, and like he shot 10 people, killed several people, said that he was inspired by the Zodiac. He's currently serving time in jail for murder and attempted murder. That Saito Sakakibara was only 14 years old at the time of his arrest.
What?
Yeah, he killed a 10-year-old boy and an 11-year-old girl. Also claimed to have assaulted 3 other girls. Wrote letters with a language similar to that of the original Zodiac.
Jesus.
Yeah, weird.
Crazy people out there.
I almost believe that theory we were talking about, that it could be more than one. Saw a little headline on here a second ago that was saying Zodiac killer suspect trained a team of assassins. I haven't actually gone on to the article, but If there was one of them training all of them to go do this, then they split
Yeah,
up
the
and
other
did
thing
it.
I was thinking is having people like he was the brains behind it, but maybe he got different people to like carry out some of the killings,
like-minded people.
Yeah, and just kind of he did all of the ciphering and everything, and just to switch it up a little bit.
That reminds me almost like a little bit of like, there's that, obviously there's like loads of different actors that portray James Bond. Well, like some people obviously say that like, it's just the same character portrayed by different people, but some people like theorize that like James Bond is like a code name the same way that 007 is, and that it's almost like every single actor is actually supposed to be almost be like a different agent that's taken the mantle of like James Bond. And that almost like explains why it's like a different actor every sort of like decade. Yeah. And it's almost like James Bond is almost like a myth.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's like other people that you could use as examples like that. I think in like, different like, like Marvel and DC comics, like sometimes it's like there's more than one of like that superhero.
Yeah.
Like I think like for a while, like I think it's supposed to be informed that like Batman was like taken over eventually by, was it Nightwing or like his son or something like that? Do you know what I mean? The idea that like, it's almost like the character itself is immortal, but as long as you're trained to be that, as you said, almost like trained as like an assassin or something, like you could be that person.
And that's it exactly. I think that's like the exact thing to say, is that the character is immortal. If it was just a person, it's not. But because this Zodiac is this character that wears this hood and goes around in this mask and suit and everything, that's something that you just can't. That could be anyone under there. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Just to sort of like wrap up, this is a case that I've never, well, like cases, I guess, that I've never even heard of, which is quite cool because, I say cool, it's just quite cool because they're like similar in terms of, have you ever heard of the Phantom Killer?
No.
Nope.
The Zodiac Killer has several similarities to the Phantom Killer, who was the unidentified perpetrator of the Texarkana Moonlight Murders of 1946. In both cases, the killer was masked and targeted couples and killed the majority of their victims by shooting them and attacked them when they were in or near their cars in lovers' lanes. Both the Phantom Killer and the Zodiac Killer were never caught.
Another one.
Weird, isn't it? The Phantom, that's a pretty spooky name, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's cool, it's like weird that like he wore a hood as well.
And this was in like the same area?
In Texarkana, Texarkana, I guess, like Texarkana, wherever that is. But that was
in Texas.
That was in 1947, so like a good couple of decades before.
Right.
But quite similarly, hooded.
Part of the cult.
Yeah.
In those sort of attacking sort of like couples, young couples, in sort of like secluded romantic spots. So interesting. Anyway, I think that pretty much concludes the mystery of the Zodiac Killer. Thanks for joining us on Mystery Mondays. What mystery will we bring you next week? Tune in to find out. Until then, stay safe, everybody. Cheerio.